There's no shame in losing to a team that's better than you. That doesn't make it any less annoying. We're going to talk about that on today's Locked On Blue Jackets.
You're Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster, here to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly about your favorite team and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Before we get things started, I want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day every single day. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms and over on YouTube. I also have to let you know that this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers place a $5 bet, and if it wins, you get $150 in bonus bets to spend on whatever you want. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Let's talk about last night's game, because that's mostly what I want to talk about today. Well, no, actually, what I want to do is talk about Jet Greaves for 34 minutes, but we can't do that. We have to talk about the rest of the game as well, according to the bosses. So we'll talk about the game as a whole, but I do want to talk a little bit about Jet Greaves. In a vacuum, this game was fine. You know, it was frustrating. Getting 1 point, I feel like it's always, well, you might as well go ahead and get 2 at that point. But I have no real issues with the way the game was played, you know, and it was a big improvement on the last time these two teams faced off against each other, where it was 5-0 at the end of the first period. You know, so really, really improved from that. It looked like they gave a crap. Which I don't know that they did at all against the Flyers the other day. But like, if you told me they were going to play the Flyers and the Capitals and they were going to lose one game 5-3 and lose the other game 2-1, I'd be like, well, yeah, we'll lose against the Flyers 2-1, and the Caps will score more goals. So like, a much better effort than what was it, Tuesday's game against the Flyers. Of course, a loss is a loss. I'm not denying that. It's not like I'm sitting here being like, well, the moral victory, though. Like, it's still annoying, and it makes the loss to Philadelphia even more annoying, I feel like, because if you'd won that one, then you'd be like, okay, fine, whatever. Like, I can live with losing to the Capitals, who are, by the way, are at the top of the division, are the best team in the East, are one of the best teams in the NHL, which I don't know that anyone saw coming. And they're doing it all without Alex Ovechkin at the minute as well, who has been out for a couple of weeks now with a broken leg, or a fractured tibia, I think it was. He's skating at the minute after, like, 2 weeks after breaking his leg, he's already skating, which feels insane to me. But like, the Capitals are 26-2 on the season. They've got 42 points, which is second in the NHL, the entire NHL. So like, it's a good team. They're great on the road. They were 11-2 going into this on the road, and so like, the Blue Jackets are a good home team, but like, the Capitals are a really good road team. So like, again, I'm not mad about the loss, and this sounds like I'm coming into this like a disappointed dad. Like, I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed, and like, I'm not mad. I'm also not like disappointed. I am frustrated, mostly because I think that they did enough to win. However, sometimes you just get goal lead, but like, both teams got a goal lead a little bit, you know, like Charlie Lindgren, I thought was fantastic. Jet Greaves, I thought was exceptional. And that was kind of replicated in, so I'm going to go back to one of my old favorite stats guys, is Micah Blake McCurdy, who I don't believe is active on Twitter anymore, but you can find him at Ineffective Math on Blue Sky. And I think it's Hockey Viz on Blue Sky, VIZ. And he has little like charts and stuff that he puts up, and the Blue Jackets scored 1 goal on like 4 expected goals, so they should have scored 4 goals last night, and they didn't because of Lindgren. But like, on the flip side of that, the Capitals only scored 2 goals when they should have also scored 4 goals on Jet Greaves. The expected goals were something like 4 to 4.5. Actually, I could probably pull this up and look at it properly. But like, so like, both goalies were excellent. It was a real goalie battle, and that was kind of, I think, what the Blue Jackets needed. I think they probably gave up a little bit too much. Like, the Capitals had 37 shots on goal, the Blue Jackets had 33. So like, it was after a couple of like low event games, it was kind of fun to see a high event game. But also, I would have liked it to be a little bit tighter, a little bit more defensively sound. But like, the goalies were just great. It was, okay, here we go. The Blue Jackets had 4.15 expected goals. The Capitals had 3.92. So basically 4-4. So for a 2-1 final score, like both goalies were on it. And again, Jet Greaves, his first NHL action this season, I thought was fantastic. We'll talk about him in a little bit more detail later on. But like, again, I think the reason that I was so frustrated by this is because of the poor play the last couple of, like, okay, they played really well against Winnipeg, and then they played really badly against Philadelphia. They played really badly against Vancouver, against Edmonton, against Calgary. Like it's been a run of like rough games, I feel like. And so if they'd only like played a little, like, and I think it's the Philadelphia one that kind of sticks. Like if they'd only played a little bit better against Philadelphia, like, and I'm not blaming specific players here. I think everyone had a poor game. I think the goaltending was bad, but I also think like everyone was kind of bad in that game, you know? So, if they'd won that game, I would be much less frustrated by this. Like getting a point out of Washington is great. You know, divisional rival. They're at the top of the division. I've already mentioned that. You know, and the other thing that's really annoying as well, actually, while I'm looking at the standings, is the teams surrounding the Blue Jackets all won last night as well. So Pittsburgh absolutely stomped all over the Canadians. The Islanders won. The Flyers won. The Rangers, I don't think played. But like, so now Philadelphia's in that second wildcard spot with 32 points. Blue Jackets are still only 4 points out of that wildcard spot, and they do still have games in hand over Philadelphia Islanders and the Penguins. So, you know, it's not like, again, it's just the fact that the Metro Division is kind of stupid this year. So again, we'll kind of see. We'll see how it unfolds, but the Blue Jackets could really use a win tomorrow night against Anaheim, and then they get to go and play Carolina and Tampa, who, you know, they've beaten them both this season already, but like that's a rough couple of games to follow up on here. So again, we'll talk about all of that kind of later on. But my like overarching point about this game is like it was fine. There's no shame in losing a game like this. I think the effort was better. The goaltending was great. Yeah, the offense wasn't where you needed it to be, but they scored a power play goal and didn't allow a shorthanded goal. Not a shorthanded goal. They didn't allow a goal on the penalty kill for the first time in what feels like a million years. A first time in what I think 14 games. Both the Capitals' goals were scored at even strength. Jackets again, the power play goal. Zach Werenski, first NHL defenseman to 10 goals this season, and that was his 100th career goal as well. So he continues to go. Kent Johnson continues to go. Like the usual suspects all continue to go. But I want to talk about an unusual suspect making his season debut for the Blue Jackets last night. I want to talk about Jet Greaves, who, for my money, was the best player on the ice. So we'll talk about that in just a second here on Locked on Blue Jackets. First, I want to tell you about Prize Picks. If you love sports, you're going to love Prize Picks. It's the best place to turn your sports knowledge into real money. Whether it's hockey, football, or any of your favorite sport, Prize Picks makes it easy to get in on the action. Here's why you need to get started today. You can win up to 200 times your money on Prize Picks. When you play your first $5 lineup, you can get $50 instantly. You don't need to win. That $50 is guaranteed. And PrizePicks also offers fun weekly promotions like Taco Tuesday, where select player predictions are discounted up to 25%. This week on PrizePicks, I'm looking at Jack Hughes to make more than 4 shots on goal and Artemi Panarin to get more than 1 assist. It's so easy to make my picks. I can have fun with friends and cash out fast. You don't have to wait around to get your deposits. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 instantly with code LOCKEDONNHL. PrizePicks, run your game. I've also got to tell you about FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if that $5 bet wins. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, you can view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Again, if you win that first $5 bet, you're going to get $150 in bonus bets that you can spend on whatever you want. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. I want to talk about Jet Greaves. I know, you're all shocked. The Locked On Blue Jackets wants to talk about the goalies in this economy. But Jet Greaves had a really tough task coming into this game. There was a lot of pressure on him, I feel like. The goaltending hasn't been getting it done for the Blue Jackets for the last little while. I was kind of surprised by this, actually. When I saw that he'd been called up, which happened approximately halfway through the recording of my episode on Wednesday. Then I was like, oh, okay, is Elvis injured? Is Tarasov still sick? Like, what's going on? No, it turns out they just called him up to call him up, decided to give him a shot. Like I said, the goaltending hasn't been where it needed it to be. Like, I've been saying all season long, I need average goaltending from this team, and they haven't been, like, they've been giving it to me sometimes, but, like, after the game in Philadelphia, like, I understand why Dean Everson was like, no, you know what, we need to switch things up. And even if that's a case of like, hey, we're gonna put the kid in, you two sit down, shut up, and watch, and maybe you'll try harder next time. And I don't think it's a case of they're not trying harder, but sometimes you need to, like, it's not even a healthy scratch, really. Like, I don't necessarily, like, I don't agree with healthy scratching, but I also don't disagree with healthy scratching. I think there's nuance, blah 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 blah. But like, I think having both goalies sit there and be like, well, you're going to play the third string guy over us. Okay, well, I'm going to take that as a challenge. You know, if you take that personally, maybe he's just trying to light a fire under them. I don't know. And then Jet Greaves did basically everything they asked of him last night. He was phenomenal, honestly. Again, like the best player on the ice, in my opinion. And yes, I know that Alexei Protas scored 2 goals. But like, he was great. He was exactly what they needed him to be. Again, he's been good in Cleveland this year, but not as good as last year. I don't think last year he was fantastic. This year he's been great, but not out of this world good. You know, I think he's got a .902 save percentage, and he went like 8-1 in the month of November. He was like the AHL goalie of the month. So like he's doing fine. He's doing great, especially when you consider that he's come from like an undrafted overager from the OHL that was just fine in junior hockey. Has somehow managed to turn that into not stealing the job yet from two established NHL goalies, or mostly established NHL goalies, but I would be very surprised if we didn't see him again this weekend. I suspect we'll probably see Elvis against Anaheim, which we'll talk about in tomorrow's episode, and then I imagine we'll probably see Jet against Carolina, and from there, who knows? I guess it really depends on what happens after that. But like I said, he gave them a chance to win last night, especially, you know, when one goalie is playing well, it puts a lot of pressure on the other goalie. And it felt like these two goalies were just kind of trading incredible saves, you know? Final shots, like I said, were 37-33 for the Capitals. So 35 saves for Jet Greaves in his season debut at the minute. And again, just like I have no issues with how Jet Greaves played. That was a .946 save percentage. His career save percentage is a .915, which is impressive when you consider he's played 11 games and only 3 of them have been wins. And he's still, like, he had a .939. He played 1 game in the first season, had a .939, had a .908 last year across 9 games, and then has played 1 game so far this year and had a .946, and was, like, 2.5 minutes away from potentially getting another win. So, like, he is exactly as advertised, and maybe even better. I do want to point out, my friend actually texted me about this morning, and I had noticed that the Capitals kept shooting high glove on Greaves, and we'd have decided that it's probably because they were told to shoot high glove on Elvis, which is kind of one of his weaker parts of his game. And it just was not working because Jet has a better glove than Elvis. So I did find it very funny that they were clearly using the scouting report on Elvis, presumably because that's who they assumed would be starting, which was a fair assumption. That's also who I assumed would be starting until it all practice kicked off on Wednesday or Thursday or whenever it was. I've lost all track of time. But anyway, where do you go from here? If you're Jet Greaves, if you're Dean Everson, like, you have to put the goalie in that gives you the best chance of winning. Unfortunately, it's a back-to-back coming up. What do you do? You know, like, ideally what you want to do is put Jet straight back in there, but you want to put the goalie in that has the best chance of winning. And if you're playing Anaheim in one game and then Carolina in the next game, like, genuinely not out of this realm of possibility that Greaves starts both, especially if he starts against Anaheim and plays well. But for my money, you don't want to do that. Like, I would save Jet for I would save Greaves for Carolina. That's going to be the tougher game. Or do you play him in the home game and have that way? I don't know. Is the answer to that? I suspect we'll probably know more tomorrow morning when they do morning skate. I don't think they're going to practice today because it's like noon there already, and I feel like if they were going to practice, they would have done it already. But it's created some interesting wrinkles in the Blue Jackets kind of goalie chart, I guess, which is if you've got a 23-year-old undrafted goalie who's been in the AHL most of his career, it's like his third season as a pro. He's outplaying your expensive number one goalie and your backup who has, all of the potential in the world and hasn't shown any of it this season. What do you do with that? Like, you can't waive Tarasov, or you can waive him. I think his stats are probably bad enough that he could sneak through, but also it's always dangerous to waive goalies, especially, teams are always looking for more goalies. Like, do you risk it? Do you do what the Penguins did with Tristan Jarry, send him down to the AHL for a couple of weeks as a conditioning loan, let him feel some pucks, let him hopefully get some confidence back, especially if you're going to keep Jet Greaves up. Do you explore a trade? I think it's too soon to say that, especially Don Waddell doesn't really know who Jet Greaves is as a person. Dean Evason doesn't really know what Jet Greaves' whole thing is. Like, this is his first game under this kind of administration, quote unquote. I know Don Waddell was in the building when Jet Greaves played Carolina at the end of last season, which he was fantastic in. So, there's some familiarity there, but it feels too soon to be like, no, this is the goalie we're going to go with. But like, if we're still having this conversation, this time next month, and Jet Greaves is still playing and is still putting up good numbers, like, do you explore? Okay, what do we do? In terms of contracts, I feel like Elvis, I think, is under contract for 2 more seasons, including this one. So he's a UFA at the end of next year, if I'm not mistaken. And then Tarasov, I think, is an RFA at the end of this year. Okay, so Elvis is under contract for 2 more seasons after this one, so 3 including this year. Tarasov is an RFA after this year. Jet Greaves is under contract for 2 more years. So, like, do you ride this year out, let Tarasov go, and then go from there? Like, there's a lot of questions to be answered with the goaltending, and I think Jet Greaves has kind of maybe started to answer one of them, but I'm not gonna sit here and be like, yes, Jet Greaves is the savior of this team. Jet Greaves is gonna bring this team to the promised land, etc., etc. He's had one good game, and maybe we'll wait for him to have 2 or 3 good games in a row before we start, anointing him as the future of Columbus goaltending. And I think the world of Jet Greaves. I think he is a phenomenally talented and driven goalie, especially considering he's 5'11" or however tall he is. Like, he's gone from being an undrafted overager to, I believe he spent some time in the ECHL, came up to the Monsters, came up to the Blue Jackets, has worked hard, was an AHL All-Star goalie last year, like, was dragged this team to the Eastern Conference Finals in the Calder Cup playoffs and the AHL. Like, I'm such a big fan of Jet Greaves. I don't think you can say after 1 game this season he's the best goalie in this organization. That might be true, but small sample sizes, So we'll wait. We'll see. His play last night has earned him the right to stay here for at least a little bit. Game on Saturday, game on Sunday. We'll see what happens there. I suspect it'll be Elvis on Saturday against the Ducks, and then Jet on Sunday against the Hurricanes, and then after that, I'm assuming the team will reevaluate and figure out what's going on. They can carry 3 goalies basically until Chinikov comes back, I think, unless they want to send Pucha back down when Chinikov is healthy. Like, they've got some moves they can make. Like, they're not like they can carry 3 goalies for a while. They're not like until someone else gets injured. Knock on wood, but we'll see what happens. Let's take another quick break, and then I want to talk a little bit about what else happened in that game, because there are some performances that I want to talk about that are not Jet Greaves. So we'll do that in just a second here on Locked On Blue Jackets. First, I've got to tell you about Indeed. We're all driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. They are your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors according to their data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. So you can ditch the busy work, you can use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging. So you can connect with candidates faster, and you don't have to put like email tag or phone tag, because that's the worst. And they don't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree that Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites. And they leverage over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day to get their matching engine to constantly learn from your preferences. So the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. Let's talk about some players that are not Jet Greaves, because the forward lines got mixed up again, and it didn't help, is the thing. Partially, I think that's just because, again, Washington is a good team, but just, again, a whole bunch of, like, just not really creating. At all, basically. Like, of the four lines, the best line was the Sillinger, Voronkov, Marchenko line, which I did like last night, actually. But they still only created half a goal for half an expected goal for and 0.4 goals against. So, like, not out of this world good, but like they didn't give up a lot, but they also created barely anything. Like, and again, like the Monahan line also was very poor. The Corrali line was basically useless, and shockingly, putting Adam Fantilli between Zach Aston Reese and Matthew Olivier did not kickstart him. They were also pretty poor. So I get it, you want to mix things up, but uncharacteristic off night for the Monahan line, and then everyone else also kind of didn't really create a lot. This is all even strength as well, by the way. Like, the power plays helped. Obviously, especially on the Blue Jackets side, they only created 1.8 expected goals for at even strength, at 5-on-5, that should say. And then they had a bunch of power plays, which is where a lot of their offense came from. They had 6 minutes power plays and had 7 scoring chances during those 6 minutes. Created almost a goal and a half. So, like, that's where a lot of their offense came from, which is surprising because it's so rare, I feel like, that the Blue Jackets create offense at anything other than 5-on-5, that I was kind of like, oh, let me look into this. I think the 5-on-3 helped, but there was a lot going on. And again, it was a better defensive effort despite the shot disadvantage. And the power, like I said, getting the power play going certainly helped, but it was an uncharacteristically slow night for even strength creation for basically everyone on the Blue Jackets. I'm just pulling up the individual players now. Like, Werenski and Fabro were decent again after a couple of bad games from Fabro. He picked himself up, figured it out. Kent Johnson was created. Again, an unsurprisingly small amount. He managed to keep the point streak going, but just not a lot of, again, like outside of Werenski and Fabro, like basically no one else created anything. Like Jack Johnson and Jake Christensen, I'm sure you are shocked to hear, was an abject disaster. And who could possibly have seen that coming? But like Jet Greaves was great in this game. Everyone else was mostly there. It was still a better effort than the game against Philadelphia, don't get me wrong, in that they like looked like they were trying literally at all. And I do think it was a much better defensive effort. But in terms of creation of offense, there was nothing going on. Like, I'm unsurprised that at 5, even strength creation, there was nothing going on, basically. If you're creating more with 6 minutes of penalties than you do in the 54 minutes of the other game, although it wasn't quite because Washington had some penalties as well. If you basically 50 minutes, whatever. if you're creating more during 6 minutes of the game than you are the entire other 50 to 54 minutes, like that feels like a problem to me. And that's something that has not been a problem for the Blue Jackets very often this season. So I'm curious as to what happened there. I suspect some other line tweaks need to be done. I don't know what those are necessarily. Like, I like the Sillinger Voronkov Marchenko line. I might keep that together. Like, honestly, I might put Fantilli up with Monahan and Johnson, put him on the wing and see how that goes, because I do think he is struggling at center at the minute. And learning from Monahan might not be the worst thing in the world. I don't know how much learning he can do while playing a different position on that line, but like, you got to do something, because you can't keep giving him James Van Riemsdyk and Zach Aston Reese and Kevin Labanc as line mates and expecting him to, do something with that. So when Chidakov returns, that might change things up. I don't know when he's going to be back. He hasn't been activated from IR yet. We'll see how that goes. They might have him this weekend. They might not. But overall, like I said, just to kind of wrap things up, like, I didn't hate this game. I thought it was a much better effort. It was frustrating. It was good to get 1 point. Would have nice to have 2. Jet Greaves was phenomenal. Nothing really to complain about. The power play scored. The penalty kill didn't concede. Like, do it again, just better next time. It looked like they'd learned from their last game, which, again, is something that we didn't see a lot of last season, which is where they would make the same mistake over and over and over and over and over. This season, it looks like, I assume they got yelled at pretty hard after the Philadelphia game, and it looks like they've taken at least some of that to heart. So we'll see how they do against Anaheim, which we'll talk about in tomorrow's episode, actually. We're going to do a bonus Saturday episode for you. We're going to preview the Ducks game. We're going to talk about what they're doing. Take a look back at the last time these two teams faced off against each other, which was when the Blue Jackets got goalied by John Gibson, of all people. But we'll talk about all of that tomorrow. Thank you for listening, making your first listen of the day every single day. Locked on Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms, on YouTube, and you can also email me if you have comments, questions, criticisms at lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com. I'm on Twitter at _Jacob Foster, JAKOBFORSTER. You can find the show at LO_Blue Jacket. And thank you once again for listening. And until tomorrow, make sure you stay locked on.